the people what's going on. Look, I had a couple of thoughts because today I rode to Machiavelli, right? And I was listening to Against All Odds again. And you guys know, anyone who follows me know I've always said that Against All Odds was better than Hit 'Em Up. Against All Odds was Tupac's best diss. And when I did my third greatest hip hop diss track of all time, I had Hit 'Em Up higher because of cultural shock, cultural value. But I always said that Against All Odds was a better diss song. But today, I was riding to it, and it made me think about all of the greatest diss songs in hip hop history. And I said, you know what? Even though I've pushed Against All Odds on Twitter and social media platforms over the years, now I'm ready to say Against All Odds should be in the conversation and in contention for the greatest diss track of all time. Several reasons. Machiavelli is Tupac's last album he recorded while he was alive. Of course, it was released after he passed away, after the murder, what have you, but it's his last album. Against All Odds is probably one of the top 5 last tracks on an album I've ever heard, personally. When I think of final tracks, you think of Tribe Called Quest, Low End Theory, Scenario, right? You think of Nas, It Ain't Hard to Tell, right? You think of Only Been for Cuban Links, Raekwon, North Star. You know, certain albums have this amazing final track that concludes a saga, concludes the story, things like that. So Tupac's All Eyes on Me obviously starts off with Bomb First, and Tupac and Outlaws, you know, they're dissing everyone. And, you know, there's a theme throughout Machiavelli, but to end it like it ended is we're going to get into some of that. But now let's talk about how powerful a diss track can be, right? Like sometimes it's one-on-one, you know, LL versus Kool Moe Dee, KRS-One versus MC Shan, you know, Takeover versus Ether with Nas and Jay-Z, MC8 versus DJ Quick, and things like that. You know, of course, Jeezy and Gucci. You know, people battle. It is what it is. But what Tupac did again is addressing multiple people from multiple walks of life, and I think that's the part hasn't been discussed appropriately. Okay, first things first. I did a video probably about a year ago talking about Nas doing the message and Tupac being offended because Tupac studied, it was written. I mean, Outlaws talked about it. Nas and Tupac both respected each other and both looked up to each other. You know what I'm saying? So Machiavelli album, Against All Odds, there's parts of that song that answered the message on it was written. These are facts. Just like, you know what I'm saying, he literally answered certain lines that Nas spit on the message on Against All Odds. And Nas caught a lot of strays on Bomb First, and he caught a lot of strays on, obviously, more than once on Against All Odds. That's why on I Am, he said it hurt me when I heard the realest shit you ever wrote. You know what I'm saying? Because he was kind of the focal point. Even at the beginning of Machiavelli, Nas, the alleged ringleader, we talked about that before. And then on Machiavelli, Against All Odds, this little nigga named Nas to get live like me. Talk about he left the hospital, took 5 like me. That's all verses from it was written. But then he said CB4 Gusto, your luck low, you know, CB4 the movie. So it's like you're an actor, you know, he was kind of throwing shots at Pac. Pac answered it. But not only that, what Pac did was, okay, I answered Nas, who is now the guy in New York. Because Biggie was the guy in 1995, because Ready to Die came out winter 1994. So 1995, Ready to Die popped off, multi-platinum, and then he was on other features, R&B features, and just popping off. And helped bring the East Coast back. And the source was he won the awards, et cetera, et cetera. Even Big said that he was kind of shocked he won the Lyricist Award over Nas. But nevertheless, he was the guy. 96, If I Rule the World, Lauryn Hill, the Fugees, the biggest group. Nas pops off, almost 3 million sold. He's the guy in New York in 96. Big in 95, Nas 96. So Pac attacks the biggest artist in New York at that time in Nas. He also attacks Biggie, who's the biggest star in 95, but still one of the biggest stars in hip hop, period, in 96. Still, even though his album came out in 94 and popped in 95, he still had the Junior Mafia album and all these other hits. So he attacks Nas as the MC he was at the time. He attacks Biggie. He attacks Puff, who was the head of Bad Boy. He attacks De La Soul. He attacks street dudes like Jimmy Henchman, like King Tut, and like Haitian Jack, right? He also says if he was told that don't start a war till he get his money right, he got his money right, start a war. So not only did he attack Bad Boy, the label, which was the biggest label on the East Coast at the time, he attacked Biggie, who was the biggest artist on Bad Boy. He attacked Nas, who some might have considered at the time the guy in New York. He addressed that on the intro of Machiavelli and Bomb First and on Against All Odds. You know what I'm saying? And then he attacked the street dudes, quote unquote, street legends in New York. When has an out, and he attacked De La Soul too. So when has an album final track addressed hip hop as far as like the music and hip hop, the street culture that people appreciate, the hood dudes? Has that ever happened? So now I might say that Against All Odds should be in contention for the greatest diss song of all time. Against All Odds should be in contention for the greatest final track on the album of all time. And Against All Odds is potentially the most underrated diss song of all time when you look at the factors in it. From the MCing side with Nas, Big, Bad Boy, De La Soul, and everyone else, to the streets, like I said again, with King Tut, Haitian Jack, Jimmy Henchman. It touched everything hip-hop can touch, the aggression, and then it ends with gunshots. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you can say what this track has done more on a kind of underground level than Against All Odds. Now, when I really look at like greatest diss tracks of all time, I personally think it's in discussion and contention to be like, okay, let's now view from a different perspective. It's more important to me to hit him up. Pop versus Focus, just him. You hear the passion. I love the beat. You can just tell that he was in tune with that song. It didn't feel like shock value. It felt authentic. It didn't feel like hit him up. I mean, of course, the beginning hit him up. That's why I F'd your wife. And then, he rhymed. The Outlaws rhyme. He come back again in the end, and he's talking and stuff. Okay, impact was massive and legendary for Hit 'Em Up. But if you go back now, and some people think Hit 'Em Up is the greatest diss track of all time. If you go back now in 2025 and listen to Hit 'Em Up and then listen to Against All Odds, I think a lot of sane people will say, man, you know what? Against All Odds is better. So when you think again about the MC side and the street side, I don't think no other diss song did that. And I think that the proper perspective is to talk about Against All Odds in the pantheon of the greatest diss tracks of all time. And what do you guys think? These are some thoughts that I had. I was like, man, let me just get this off and share it with people who appreciate some of my thoughts and see what you guys think. You know what I'm saying? So that's it, man. Not going to hold you, man. Happy weekend. Thanks for supporting the Dome Podcast on YouTube. Thanks for supporting me on X. And thanks to everyone who just kind of appreciate what I say, what I do, and just my honest thoughts, man. There's no agenda. There's nothing. I thank you for checking out Tone the Dome, man. And Look forward to more things in the future, man. Blessings. Peace.